What's up, everyone? You're on the Low Ball Pod. He's Lucas. I'm Owen. And today we got another really fun Saturday episode for you guys. We're going to be talking about some hot takes in both the NBA and NFL, resuming our NBA content as we near closer to that October start. And yeah, we're starting to get into the period in the NFL season where we're getting information on these teams. We're starting to get a better idea. So definitely going to be cool to continue monitoring this and just see where this goes. But before that goes, how are you doing, Lucas?
I'm good, man. As always, good to be back here with you. And yeah, hot takes are always a fun topic. So more on the NFL side, probably more some overreaction fueled takes that we'll be going over there after the small sample size of the season that we have so far. But for the NBA ones, yeah, just some fun stuff that to kind of talk on before the season. Some stuff that we've seen flying around social media that's been gaining some hype. There's always hot takes out there on every single team. So yeah, we're going to be covering a few different teams today. The first take that we're talking about today, pretty interesting one pertaining to a team that we've covered a little bit before, the Charlotte Hornets, and that is that the Hornets will finish with a top 6 seed and make the playoffs this year. So this is definitely an interesting take. If you're just looking at the landscape of the Eastern Conference, I think this projection really stems from the feeling of how wide open the East is going to be this year, and that kind of if anybody gets hot at the right time or kind of meshes this year and is able to capitalize on their potential, that they can definitely sneak into that playoff picture and even make a playoff run. As far as the Charlotte Hornets go, there are multiple players here to be very excited about, of course. A healthy LaMelo Ball is one of the most fun players in basketball and someone that could propel this team to those lofty expectations of this hot take. But I mean, yeah, it's really tough to say when you look down the East. Do I think the Hornets are a top 6 team in the East? I definitely don't. But I mean, if they get hot, anything's possible. I just have a lot of questions, mainly around like their front court. Projected starting center still Mason Plumlee, so pretty gruesome there. Not sure how high your ceiling can be when that's kind of the outlook you're giving yourself there. But yeah, I mean, this is a fun one. The Hornets are a fun team, but ultimately I'm not sure if I see this one happening.
Yeah, I'm also leaning no on this one, and I see why it's a hot take because, like you said, the East is so promising, and it does feel like there is going to be some type of breakout team this year that nobody really sees coming that'll make a name for themselves. Obviously, you're going to have a lot more teams vying for playoff spot, a lot more competitive than this division has or this conference has been in the past, but I agree with you on leaning no and just jumping into some of the weaknesses. Like you said, starting center just screams at you when you look at this roster. I saw their projected starting 5 has Diabate as their projected starting guy.
Yikes.
And yeah, they also have Mason Plumlee off the bench, who is, a bench center like he pretty much belongs to be. And they drafted Ryan Kalkbrenner, who is got the size, but pretty slow-footed and not really something that is going to help this defense, which is also a huge question on this team. But it was interesting to see them kind of ship off all these centers that they had last year. It seemed like they were kind of not necessarily a strength of this team, but it wasn't something they had to worry about for a young team building. But they ship off Nick Richards during the year last year. They ship off Mark Williams, obviously, in this offseason. They get rid of Nurkic, who I don't think is that big of a loss, but it just leaves you in a really weird position here in terms of center. And unfortunately, this actually was not a strong point for them last year, like I said, but they were one of the better rebounding teams in the league last year. Offensive rebounding wise, they were 6th in the league, and total rebounds 9th in the league. So is going to kind of hurt you on the offensive end, although they do have some guys to supplement that kind of up and down the roster. They are a longer team for sure, but yeah, that offensive rebound kick is not really going to be there. That they had last year, and the obvious downside would be them not having a serious rim protector, which leaks into another weakness on this team, which is the fact that they just finished bottom 6 in defensive rating last year, and kind of overall, you don't have a lot of guys who you can hang your hat on defensively here. They bring in Cunningham, who is a guy who's very, I would say he's a strong defender. He brings a lot of energy on that side of the ball. He's a hustle player, but I don't know if he's really an NBA level, like, best defender on your team. I don't think that's really what he's branded as. He's more of like that kind of guy who, I don't know, is like a second or third best player on an NBA team. I don't know about him athletically as a point of attack defender. So that's certainly going to be something that I'm looking at this year, is what this defense looks like. And overall, I think if this team does make a playoff push, especially one that avoids the play-in, you're going to have to see a lot more buy-in on the defensive end this year. And that starts with the stars in LaMelo and Brandon Miller, who have not been known for their defense in their careers so far. And definitely the overall culture in Charlotte doesn't really support a kind of aggressive, hustling defensive team. So they would need a pretty big culture flip to flip things on their head on that side of the ball this year, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, like you touched on, this is a team that, to start with, has a boatload of issues on the defensive end. Like you said, they were 24th in defensive rating last year. And believe it or not, I mean, this is a team that you would think their identity is on the offensive end of the ball. And maybe this is more attributed to the long and kind of seemingly never-ending absence of LaMelo Ball, but they finished 29th last year in offensive rating as well. So, like, at least you have to establish some type of identity on one side of the ball. And for me, I feel like offense is definitely what they should focus on. And the players that they have here, theoretically, if they do kind of click together, this could be a very fun, explosive, and hopefully consistent offense. So we'll see if Charles Lee and the squad over there in Charlotte will be able to kind of rally the troops there and turn it around there. But
Look at
sorry,
what were you gonna say?
just someone who I know we both like and could help bolster this offense. Of course, was the acquisition of Colin Sexton too. Just someone who should definitely be able to provide a spark off the bench. And I think the combination of him and Trey Mann could definitely lead to some offensive fireworks for this team in that second unit as well. So we'll see. But yeah, for me, definitely not a team I'd project to be a top 6 seed. If you did watch our Eastern Conference rankings preview, I actually had them come in at 12th. So not really even close.
Yeah, I do like them getting Sexton and getting a little more veteran presence. I think that could be great for the culture. But I think the big thing with this offense and why it was so bad last year is they are a team that, starting at the top, they're going to rely on a lot of difficult shots. I don't think they really have an easy button on that offense. And that really translated with the efficiency of this team. When you look at it, they had a 43% field goal percentage on the year overall, which was good for 30th in the NBA. And they weren't too much better beyond the arc, where they were at 33.9, which was good for 28th. And yeah, like I said, it starts at the top of the team. LaMelo and Brandon Miller, while they have been, really good in stretches and definitely can kind of get that, get in the zone for sure, they're not necessarily consistently getting the best shots. They're not getting to the rim at the highest rate. LaMelo is a 40% guy from field goal. Same with Brandon Miller. They're both at 40%. And even Miles Bridges, who looks to be kind of the third option on this team, is at a 43% field goal percentage, which is just not at all the role you want for Miles Bridges. So I think it also all goes back to the culture again. Like, when you watch the Charlotte Hornets, it's almost kind of like watching like a street ball game. Like they are taking some pretty crazy shots. They do a lot of flashy stuff. They can be a fun team to watch when they're clicking, but I wouldn't say they're the most disciplined team. And yeah, just very, very reliant on these tough shots, these moving shots. And I definitely would like to see some more kind of setup stuff here, some kind of catch and shoot looks because LaMelo is such a good creator. But yeah, I would say they need a more consistent formula on that team, whether it's, getting more to the rim for LaMelo, maybe Knuppel could supplement that. You want Brandon Miller getting downhill a little bit more too. You want to maybe set up Miles Bridges more on kind of these pick and roll shots. And yeah, I think definitely getting to the rim more. They need to get to the line more, and to do that, you obviously have to get to the rim a little bit more, be more aggressive. 29th in the NBA in field goal and free throw percentage, which is just, I mean,
Probably ties back to culture. Yeah.
Yeah, this is, we're just throwing out all these like rankings here, and they're really towards the bottom of the league in a lot of stuff. So, no matter how you split it, this team has to get a lot more serious. Even when you look at the turnovers, they're bottom 3 in turnover percentage. So it's a lot to ask this team to, make a big jump with really just bringing in like-minded rookie. And is this year 2 of Charles Lee there? So
Yeah, sounds right.
So, I mean, he obviously wasn't necessarily a guy who brought in a huge winning culture last year. And just when you tie in the turnovers, the inefficiency, the, defense, this is a team that was bottom 4 in total net rating. It's just starts to add up, and it starts to become a little bit of a long shot. LaMelo is the leader of this team. Definitely just needs to get a lot more efficient. Cut down the turnovers, take better shots, start to kind of orchestrate this offense in a more serious way. You could definitely need some buy-in from him defensively. And yeah, I mean, keep circling back to culture questions, but that's just what it is here. I feel like the Miles Bridges effect probably doesn't help too much either with that. And you mentioned it earlier, there's also like nagging injury questions on this team. Like, we haven't seen a full healthy season of LaMelo, so it's really hard to project him in that way. But there is, I guess, if we want to paint some optimism, I touched on Cunningham. He seems like an NBA player who plays hard. He might be the right type of guy to start filling in here, although I do think you need some more type of guys like that. And you're hoping that LaMelo can kind of flip the switch and just continue on this elevation he's had. He has increased his points per game every year. He was at 25 last year, which is awesome. He's right on the brink of kind of that superstar territory. If he takes another jump in terms of that, that's really scary. And it also just opens up, the potential to create for others. I mean, LaMelo is one of the best playmakers in the league. He was top 3 actually in, I think it was assist percentage, which is awesome. So he's a guy who, you can build an offense around, and you're hoping to see that. And on Brandon Miller, there's a lot of promise there too. The 3-pointer has really started to translate. Last year, he was 36 from 3, which is starting to get into that range of elite. He's been very good off the catch. So again, if you can kind of get into more of a set thing with this team, with Knuppel and him as kind of your catch and shoot guys, and Bridges is your role guy, and it all kind of revolves around a better decision making, more efficient LaMelo, I can see, this jumping into an elite offense. So you're gonna need some more seriousness. You're gonna need buy-in all around. But I guess you could say the kind of bench and depth that they've added this offseason could certainly help with that. They did add the veterans you mentioned, Sexton. I think they bring in Pat Connaughton, who, I mean, at least has been on some winning teams before. Plumlee's kind of a journeyman veteran guy who's played on a lot of teams. I do like them drafting Liam McNeely at the back of the first. He could certainly be kind of a winning player in the league. So if you want to make the case, I guess that's where it would start.
Yeah, definitely. And tying back to, you said McNeely, will definitely see what he can do in his rookie year as well as Khan, but a guy that's kind of not quite an X factor, I'd say, for Charlotte this year, but someone that they'd like to see at least something out of would definitely be Tijan Salon. After such a rough rookie season that he just had, just some type of encouragement there for I'm sure they would just love to see on their end. They passed up on multiple like defensive minded big men that if they were looking to kind of move off of Mark Williams in the long term, it might have been a good idea to invest in one of those guys. I'm really not a Donovan Clingan guy, but someone like that probably could have helped them out kind of going forward and as a good pairing with
Definitely.
LaMelo,
That'd be
as
awesome.
well as like Kel'el Ware, someone who was taken later by the Miami
Damn, they
Heat.
passed
Like,
up on both those guys for Salon, man.
yeah, I mean, they took Salon 6th, so that is just a major whiff at this point.
He
And we'll
looks
see
like a
if,
throwaway.
yeah, he really does. So we'll see if he can build on that at all this year. Also passed up on Zach Edey, I guess it's worth mentioning. But yeah, just some guys that you could kind of plug in for a reliable at least 20 minutes a game at this point at the center position. But especially Kel'el Ware, I'm sure they're kicking themselves over because he looks super solid.
He would be great on this team, especially for the defense. You know, if you're worried about that 3-point, little do he's showed flashes. That's tough. That's really tough.
Yeah, so I'd say our final verdict here is disagree.
Yeah. No.
Yeah. Fair assessment there. And yeah, if we do want to move on, our second take we have here is pertaining to a different Eastern Conference team in a very different situation. Talking about it, maybe the most disappointing team in last year's NBA season, looking to make a major bounce back. Can the 76ers mesh, capitalize in a weak East, and make the NBA Finals this year?
It's a long shot, but honestly, I don't hate this one if you're gonna go with a hot take. I mean, making the finals is gonna be around as hot as it gets, but like they have as much talent as anyone in the East. I would say it's definitely a risky bet because of health. Like this isn't a case that I'm going to pull out too many stats for sure. Because if you look at last year, it's just
Very
not
different
going to
team.
support that at all. It was very, very disappointing. You know, even when they were healthy, Embiid really didn't look like himself. He was at his lowest mark in a long time. He was really inefficient when he was on the floor too. I mean, 44% on the year from Joel Embiid is really rough. He was clearly hobbled, you know. It's sad looking at Embiid, you know, it's just really the past 2 years we've seen him like in that playoff run, he looked super hobbled, just not himself, was able to kind of etch out some awesome moments, but it's gonna obviously boil down to that. We've talked about how Embiid, when he's healthy, is, you know, one of the most talented centers ever who can just completely flip a team on its head. So, I mean, if Joel Embiid is healthy, I think he would pretty easily be the best player in the East right now. Oh no, Giannis. But I wouldn't say easily, but he's up there with Giannis when he's healthy. He's proven to be that. He's really the core of where this starts. But you're also going to need improvement from a guy like Maxey, who was a little disappointing last year when he was asked to step into a larger role. He wasn't necessarily as efficient as you wanted to see, and we saw the three-pointer come down a lot too. He only was at 33.7 from three last year. Definitely not really himself, not what you'd expect. I know you're a big Maxey guy, so I'm sure you can talk on that a little bit, but the kind of pull-up three that he was so great at wasn't really there last year, unfortunately. And yeah, there's more questions down the roster, but I'll kick it off to you for a sec.
Yeah. Yeah, I think a lot of that kind of maybe efficiency struggle for Maxey can be attributed, one, to kind of the shot selection that he was forced into last season, where, like you said, he was definitely the lead ball handler by a good margin and someone who is asked to do way more than he had in the past. This is someone who did have the luxury of kind of growing into this role next to James Harden, which I'm sure made it so easy to kind of find your looks and remain efficient. And now he kind of has the backcourt reins. So I definitely trust him to improve on that this year and get that efficiency back up a little bit. And I'm sure having the explosive VJ Edgecombe next to him this year will make that a little bit easier. This is someone who might, aside from Flag, might be the most NBA ready guy in this draft. And just someone who projects as a great two-way guard and coming in ready to make an instant impact on both ends. I think especially defensively, if he's able to relieve Maxey kind of some responsibility there and let him focus mainly on the offensive duties, I like that kind of dynamic a lot there. But to me, the biggest thing, aside from Joel Embiid, which I do want to quickly say, he looks very slim right now. He looks in great shape. I hope that can lead to him maybe seeing the court more this season and consistently being able to play at his best and not be so hampered by those injuries that are unfortunately kind of really derailing him. But
has he been playing again? Because I remember that was like a month ago. There was like a pretty grim report on him, like not being like back yet. But I did see that picture. He looks a lot better.
I can't say I've seen much film of him in live action, and I can't say if I've heard anything about him being good to go even for opening night. I'm not sure if that's like really something that's up in the air right now. I'm sure we'll get more in the coming weeks as we get closer to tip off. But yeah, as far as his conditioning at least, I think he looks very good, and slimming down probably did wonders for those knees that he's had so many issues with. So hopefully that can propel him to more consistency there, and we can get the Joel of old. But yeah, for me, on top of that, like I was saying, the biggest X factor is definitely Paul George for me. Someone who just by far had the worst season of his career last year. And I mean, he was up at, I want to say 23 a game with the Clippers in his past season. He dipped to 16 this year, and the efficiency dipped alongside it. And it really just seemed like he wasn't himself for a lot of this season. I do recall that before the season tipped off last year, he had this bone bruise in his knee. He kind of tweaked his knee in a preseason game, and it kind of seemed like he just wasn't the same from there. I'm wondering if a healthy preseason can get us to Paul George of old, and he can kind of return to that all-star form that we're used to seeing from him. If he can do that, if VJ Edgecombe can come in, be NBA ready, and make an instant impact, if Joel Embiid is himself, and if Tyrese Maxey can get that efficiency up and be the explosive, fun guard that we know him to be, a lot of ifs. But yeah, if those do come to fruition, this team can definitely make it out the East. I mean, like you said, the talent is awesome, head to top to bottom. So it really comes down to a lot of different factors for them. But if everything goes in the right direction, yeah, the sky's the limit.
Yeah, and I liked how you started that about Maxey. He has been a guy who's been asked to, be kind of the second guy for his whole career, second or third option, which is a big adjustment, and he really filled in so great in that role outside of Embiid. I thought he was super great, just kind of always a guy who was floating around the ball, like always was able to kind of make a nice shot off a movement and connect in well. So hoping that in this role he gets to be better. And I am pretty optimistic on Edgecombe. He does just feel like the type of guy that this team needs to fill in defensively for sure. He's a super lanky kind of wing guard hybrid. I love the athleticism that he's going to bring to this team, and hopefully just the pace and energy that he's going to need to bring for a team that, is a little bit older. And like you said, they're relying on kind of an older Paul George on the wing, who certainly isn't his old self defensively or athletically. Hopefully he is a little bit better, but I don't know if it's something you can necessarily rely on. So I would say that is it's all swing points on this team, but I think Edgecombe is probably one of the bets that you're feeling better about. Something that isn't necessarily a bet on this team is I do think they're getting a really solid scoring option in Quentin Grimes back. We saw last year that he just absolutely caught fire. I think at the end of final couple months, he was averaging like 25 a game, looking like a serious, top three scoring option on a team. So if you do have, that regression from Paul George, I think Grimes is a guy who could kind of fill into that wing role that you want. And he came up, in this league on your team as that 3-and-D option. So he's super solid on both ends, and would love to see him continue to build on what he got going for this team last year. Another Nico Harrison deal there. They traded him for Caleb Martin. That one does not look like it's aging well, but they also got McCain back this year, who looked really kind of like the perfect six-man potentially for this team. I really liked the scoring threat that he gave off the bench for sure. The three-pointer definitely translated for him. He was super efficient, super steady ball handler. He's a exciting young player. So they do have a little bit of a core here and some guys who, I think will be able to take the reins in some of these games and provide some energy and spark off the bench. If you're looking at McCain, Grimes, Maxey, and Edgecombe, I'm assuming that PG and Embiid are going to be load managed a good amount this year. So you're hoping that those guys can fill into bigger roles and, kind of carry you through the regular season a bit. I'd say the plan for this team to make this deep run would be if they could, not play Embiid as much through the regular season. Hopefully he only has to play like 50 games or so. And if he's fully healthy going into the playoffs, that could be something that we haven't really seen with this team, which would obviously just be a massive X factor. And yeah, I do think they really have some of the depth pieces to do it. They still have Kelly Oubre, who's, a solid defensive and, occasionally can spark on offense type of guy. Just, yeah, I mean, these are all going to be hot takes, so it's going to be, hard to back any 100%, but I would say that this is one of the more realistic ones, and I think I'd be maybe the least surprised in it happening just because so much of it banks on injury and health. So if you are able to catch a break there, I think that this team is, if you could assure me health, I would kind of pencil them in as, a top contender in the East. So that's really what this one swings on.
Yeah, exactly. And on top of that, I'm someone who definitely is a believer in the kind of culture that Nick Nurse establishes, especially the defensive identity that he can usually carry on a team. And of course, that was not well reflected in last year's team, but last year's team is hopefully for Sixers fans a shell of what we see this year. I mean, the Sixers were outside of the top 23 in both offensive and defensive rating, but I don't think those numbers are too fair to apply to that team because they were just so beaten up all year. So I think like VJ Edgecombe is someone I'm very excited to see how he can mesh with a Nick Nurse type of style. And then, I mean, if he gets Embiid back, someone who, when he's healthy, has been one of the best rim protectors in the league, that's obviously a huge game changer for this team. So, yeah, it really all comes down to health for this team. That's why it's a hot take. But if they are healthy, like we said, sky is definitely the limit for this team. So my verdict for this one would be I'm still out, maybe as a biased Knicks fan. I want to see my boys make it there. And I still think the Cavs are better than this team too. But yeah, I'm out, but I think a lot more validity than the Hornets take.
Yeah, I kind of even overlooked the Nick Nurse effect on this team. I think he is, another coach who can, supplement some, not lack of talent, but, get the most out of his players with his system. And he's, proven that he can build a defense out of, I mean, he's had a solid defensive personnel in Toronto, but he is, a very schematically gifted head coach. So that's just another wrinkle to add to this team. But the one thing I would like to see them add would probably be a more athletic kind of five so that they can run that. They love that kind of box in one thing that they did in Toronto under Nurse. I think that would be awesome to implement on this team if, you need to rest Embiid. I think that would be a great way to kind of pick up some slack. But yeah, I mean, looking at this roster, it's fully healthy, awesome. So I would. You know what? If we're going with hot takes, I'll say yeah. I support this take, and I'm
Yeah.
crossing my fingers and praying to God that they're healthy. The one thing I do want to say though is how would another finals appearance affect Kyle Lowry's legacy? That is kind of a grim note on this team. Not
Wow.
necessarily
I'd say
something that I'd want to see.
yeah.
But
I'm with you there, man.
especially at this stage, I kind of dread seeing Lowry come onto the floor. So that
They also
that
have
that
the
wouldn't be
skin and
great.
bones of Eric Gordon still, so a couple real old veterans at the back of this bench.
Oh, I can already just see the celebration, the big Eric Gordon three, at the beginning of the fourth quarter to give him life.
Him spotting up from
Oh,
like 30 feet that he loves to do now.
they do
But,
have the strength of transition Drummond too. Man,
well,
this is a hilarious roster.
that's the thing. Like with you bracing kind of inevitably for Embiid to miss some time, I feel like that backup center definitely should have been more of a priority for them this
That's
offseason
what I'm
too.
saying,
And
man.
man, losing Yabusele definitely hurts too. I mean, that guy provided them a lot of relief last season, and he'll be doing it in the orange and blue this year. So I'm looking forward to that.
I know some people are kind of high on Adam Bona. I don't know if that's how you say his name. It's a pretty funky one, but he, could provide some athleticism and some youth on the front court, but yeah, not someone I'd really want to bank on, but if we want
Time
to
will
move
tell.
on, yeah,
Yeah.
I guess he's only 22, so enough Adam Bona talk, enough Eric Gordon and Ghost of Kyle Lowry talk. Let's move on to our next take, which would be, can Cade Cunningham take the next step in his development, which has, gone pretty great so far, and last year was a huge step, but can he take that final step and put together an MVP season? What do you think about that? I know you got to witness the Cade Cunningham effect firsthand last year and saw some awesome flashes, so.
Yeah, man. Cade, first of all, as I always say when it comes up to this, GG's again. That was a very fun series. But yeah, Cade is such a talented player. I mean, I really, to be honest, I don't hate this take at all. I think mainly in the NBA now, just a huge factor for winning that award is being able to kind of stuff the stat sheet on every level. Because
Mm-hmm.
now the guys that win the award are just Nikola Jokic averaging a 30-point triple-double, or you have SGA who's sitting at 33 a game with 3 stocks and then 6 rebounds, 6 assists. So, like, you have to stuff the stat sheet to win, to even be considered for this award. And Cade Cunningham definitely checks that box. I mean, he averaged 26 points alongside 9 assists last year, as well as 6 rebounds too. So he can really do it on every level there with about 2 stocks as well. And this is someone who is clearly the leader of this team and someone who you can tell that the guys really respect and will rally around. He actually did, kind of fun fact, he finished 7th in MVP voting last season. So really showing that in his age 23 season, he was able to accomplish that. And realistically, he should only be heading up from there. The main question for me pertaining to if he can bring this award home is the Pistons would probably have to finish with a top 3 seed. And that would likely mean that they would have to win north of 51, 52, 53 games. So to me, that's the bigger question is can Detroit kind of check that box in the win category? Because if they can, I mean, Cade will be right up there with the SGAs and everyone like that statistically. So we'll just see if those two can come to fruition this year.
I agree completely. That's the first point that I thought of. Just can he get enough help on this team? And can he also just, elevate this team even further with a healthy supporting cast? And I think that is the key to this question. If he does do that and get this team up to a top 2, 3 seed in the East, he certainly has the stat stuffing abilities, like you mentioned, to support that case. And if he does get kind of that surprise narrative going, I could really see this. But he is going to need to do a lot of elevating there in terms of that. And certainly, I think on the offensive side of the floor, that's where he's going to need it. This team was bottom half in 3-point shooting last year, and it didn't necessarily get too much better. They lost their best 3-point shooter from last year in Malik Beasley. Tim Hardaway Jr. was a super solid 3-point shooter for them too last year. So that is certainly going to need to be answered. And I think overall, they just need to get the numbers on this offense up. They were only 14th in offensive rating and 16th in overall true shooting and effective field goal percentage. So Cade, he has proven that he can create in a bad scenario and he can do it for himself. They will need it to translate to more wins, but yeah, he's proven that he can put up stats in a bad situation. He's grown up in the league in this situation his whole time. He's been put through one of the most grueling starts to a career possible if you look at some of those teams that he had to. And last year he was actually the second leading scorer in unassisted points last year, only behind Shea. So I think that kind of speaks to it, because for an MVP season, he would have to have a Shea type of year. And that, I think that's kind of the mold that you want. And I guess you could see a little similarities. Obviously, Shea has working with a lot more on OKC in terms of talent. And, you know, I mean, it is a tougher West, so maybe that offsets each other and they can rack up some wins. But in terms of, you know, other talent, they do have some promising stuff coming back this year. I mean, Ivy looked awesome in the 30 games that he did play last year. He was at almost 18 a game on 46 from the field and over 40 from three, which is huge. We talked about having to get that 3-point shooting up and just overall efficiency. You could potentially see a better efficient season from Tobias Harris, who was at only 34 from three last year, and he's kind of been around like 36, 38 on his career, so you're going to need a little more from him. And I think the biggest opportunity for this team to get, you know, some more easy looks on offense outside of Cade would just be tapping into that connection with Jaden Duren a lot more. We talked about him in our last episode and how he's kind of the moldable ball of clay in terms of the athlete that you want at the center position. And I think that, you know, they should continue trying to get him more looks and working to develop him. Last year, he was only 16% frequency on the pick and roll last year. And if you look at some of the other leaders in that stat, you see a lot of the more prominent centers in the league who are at more around like 25%. And they did see a lot of efficiency when they did this. He was 70% on pick and roll last year. So if you can kind of develop that connection a little bit more with Cade, I could see this offense, you know, shooting up, getting more efficient, and, you know, just able to hit the easy button a lot more.
Yeah, I think just based off kind of the average age of this lineup, I would project them to just naturally improve as they continue to grow chemistry and build personally as players. I think I really like what you said there. I mean, Duren, is definitely one of the X factors to me on this team. I think if he can maybe get up to, he was about 12-10 last season. If he can maybe get up to 15 a game this year and remain with that solid efficiency that he showcased, I think that can be a huge factor for this team. Another one, like you touched on, I think Ivy being able to maintain that shooting efficiency is a necessity, as well as Tobias Harris maybe being able to tick up that 3-point percentage a little bit more like we have seen from him in previous seasons, mainly because the starting small forward is likely going to be Ausar Thompson, someone who cannot space the floor at all. So you should be able to make up for this in other areas if possible. But I think where this team could have a lot of excitement is also on the defensive end, where they did finish 10th in defensive rating last year. And yeah, I think that they will only grow on this end, as Ausar Thompson is one of the best perimeter defenders in the NBA. And yeah, they should just hopefully continue to grow on that, and that will result in maybe a couple extra wins. An interesting fact I did think of for the Pistons was they actually had the exact same record on at home and on the road last season. So they were 22 and 19 both at home and on the road. So if you can maybe, I mean, when the Knicks were playing in Detroit in the playoffs, it was a hectic atmosphere. I would think that they might be able to tick up maybe the wins at home a little bit next season, maybe resulting in them touching that 50 win threshold that they will definitely need to if Cade's going to be considered for this award. So yeah, it's just if someone's going to win, if someone like Cade's going to win MVP, it's going to be the little things like that they're just going to have to improve on, the little intangibles, and maybe they'll get there. But I really like Cade Cunningham. I think for next season, this might be a little bit of a long shot, but I would not rule this out at all, like down the road. I think this is someone who will easily, or he has a great chance of retiring with an MVP, at least one.
Yeah, I like that point about at home. I think especially since they were such an improved team last year, necessarily the hype wasn't there with them. It was probably the most improved team in the league, I'd say pretty easily in terms of adding wins. I don't think anybody thought this team would be as good as they were last year. So, maybe you are able to sell some more tickets with that hype. I think getting away from the wins, even though they would have to probably put up like close to 60 wins for him to get an MVP, just given the competition that he's going to be up against. But looking more specifically at him and how he can kind of take that next step, I do think the thing with him would be getting to the line a bit more. He did only have 5 free throw attempts per game last year, which is pretty shocking from a guy with his build. I think that's an easy spot for him to, get more points per game in terms of that, get up to that 30-point mark, which would be another huge factor in his MVP. And I think overall he could just get a little more aggressive attacking the actual rim. He is so awesome in that mid-range, and he loves kind of controlling the pace there, almost a little similar to Shea. But I think if he could really get downhill and use this awesome frame that he has, he could definitely start to get those averages up a little bit more. I mean, he was at nearly 26 a game last year, but he was only 53% at the rim last year, which is, pretty well below average. So if he could, just become a little more strong at the rim, I think a little more aggressive. And I think that comes with also having other options around you that are threats to score. This is a team that doesn't have a lot of shooters, so it is pretty clogged inside. So if there's more threats around him, then it's going to open up and you could get a little more downhill action from Cade, which would be awesome. He also, could stand to cut his turnovers down a little bit. He was at 4.4 last year, which I think is something that's just going to, go down with age and experience. Second half of the year, he wasn't as high in that category, but yeah, I mean, he's an awesome player. He's a guy who's ascending to this MVP range. Like I said, he's just amazing in the mid-range, great pace. He definitely looks like an offensive engine. So question is, can he elevate these guys enough to the point where this is a serious team that's a top 2 or 3 seed and shocking people again. So some more cool advanced stats for him. He was top 4 in assist percentage. We mentioned LaMelo was top 3. So both guys who can run an offense at its highest degree and hopefully, pick this unit up a little from last year and make a statement this year. It's also top 13 in VORP, a big MVP stat if you look at the winners from recent years.
Yeah, absolutely. So I feel like overall my final verdict for this upcoming season, like I said, is probably not, but I see the vision. I absolutely do. Similar with the 76ers take, I see the vision, and I think down the road, this is something that will not be a hot take at all.
Yeah, I wouldn't back it for this year just because you do have such serious MVP threats, specifically Jokic and Shea, and Lucas still hasn't gotten one, and Giannis is going to have a crazy year, and I don't think that Cade is quite at that level yet, so hold I'd bookmark this one for a year or two, and I think he will be in the conversation after that. And maybe beef stew Isaiah Stewart can get him there.
We'll see, man. Um, so yeah, that would about wrap it up for that take. And I know we had one more that we wanted to touch on for the NBA pertaining to a Western Conference superstar, and that is Devin Booker. Devin Booker taking home this year's scoring title. This one, to me, out of all the ones we've talking about so far, I think it has the most validity, and that's just because of the situation that the Phoenix Suns project to be in this season. Devin Booker is no stranger to being on teams where he has to kind of carry the load, but he hasn't had to do that for maybe 5 seasons now, where he's been a part of multiple teams that have been at least trying to contend. But before that, of course, in his early seasons, it was well documented how he needed to get a lot of help. And now he faces the same situation, but he is in the middle of his prime. And this is someone who has had a 70-point game in the past and has consistently averaged 26, 27, 28 points per game on very solid overall efficiency. I mean, the last couple seasons before and last year, which is a little bit rough, he was 49% shooting, 49% from the field, 36% from three on very solid volume there as well. And I mean, I'm someone of the belief that in this Phoenix Suns new system with Jordan Ott, he will be able to maintain that efficiency as well as potentially even uptick his volume just due to the departure of both Kevin Durant and Bradley Beal, two people who are no strangers to taking a good amount of shots in every single game. Of course, Jalen Green is someone who's expected to partially fill this void, but just looking at kind of the outlook of Devin Booker's career, I believe the most field goal attempts he's taken in a game is about 21 a game. I wouldn't be surprised if that's able to shoot up to 23, 24 shots that he's taking in a game this season, trying to will this Phoenix team into the playoff picture. So, yeah, just someone who's a very gifted, talented scorer being pushed into what projects to be an incredibly high volume situation for him. I think there's a lot of validity behind this one, and I wouldn't be surprised if this is someone who is able to eclipse 30 points a game this season.
Yeah. So the big thing with Booker is going to be usage. And last year, he was even used probably more often than he had been in the past, and he was still only at about 28% usage. And when you compare that to the superstars in the league who really are, the centerpiece of their offense and everything's running around them, you get up to like 35% usage from Giannis last year. Embiid was at 34.2, LaMelo 34.2, Shea was up close to 34. So I fully expect Devin Booker to be in that range this year, and he has always shown that he is one of the most efficient scorers in the league. And I think when you can add that with usage, maybe the efficiency will go down a little, but you're gonna see a lot more points than he, has put up in recent years. And I definitely think there has been a cap because of in a role on a team where there's a lot of talent like the Suns have been, he is certainly more that guy who's built to take a bit of a back seat. And that's not a knock on him at all. It's just how awesome he plugs into a lessened usage role, which is, a really rare and valuable archetype in the league. I'd say it's maybe even harder to be like an elite second guy in terms of like playing off the ball and still producing at the rate that he has. Like he's put up 27 points per game as the second option on a team. Like that is pretty ridiculous when you think about it. And now that he's going to be getting probably like, he was at 19 looks a game last year, he will, I'd imagine, get like another 4 shots per game at the very least. That is, enough to get him up to over 30 points per game for sure. I'm sure he'll be a lot more aggressive attacking too. He's over the years gotten to be a lot more comfortable with the ball in his hands. He has become, a lot more of kind of a center of gravity playmaker guy. So Book in a more usage role is something I'm super excited to see, and I could certainly see him getting there. I think this is probably the most realistic of all of the takes that we have here today.
Yeah, I think so too. And something that you touched on for Cade that I think might be applicable to Booker here in this situation too, would be the ability to get to the free throw line, maybe a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
Booker has touched 7 free throws a game in his career, but the last time he did that was all the way back in 2020. So if he can, maybe as a product of the higher usage rate, if he is able to spike in that category, get to the rim more, and apply more pressure there, could definitely see him get to the line more. And career 87% free throw shooter. I mean, that's someone that you want to get there as often as you can. Just someone who I think is one of the most gifted scorers I've ever seen, and with ample and um, extended opportunity this upcoming season, I could definitely see that come to fruition.
Yeah, he's
So
also a guy who's started to take more and more threes every year too. And last year, he hit kind of a funk, probably one of the worst funks of his career, and his that number wasn't necessarily where you'd expect it to be. So I think he'll probably be taking even more threes this year too, and could definitely see that number jump up to around three threes a game for him, even if he's in a increased role. And yeah, I think all areas of the court he's going to be taking a lot more shots, and he is one of the best scorers in the league. So this is something that I could definitely get behind, and he's a guy I'm going to be targeting in fantasy basketball for sure.
definitely. And if the Phoenix Suns have a sliver of hope of creeping into the playoffs in this absolutely loaded Western Conference, they're going to need this type of production from Devin Booker. So we'll see if he can make that happen. I'm of the belief that he can. But yeah, we'll see in
He
about a month if
he
he
has
can.
historically had pretty good attendance too, so
Yeah, definitely.
that's certainly something that could come into play. But I guess scoring title is averages, right?
Yeah,
So
but you'd still have to probably hit the 65.
yeah,
So
so he's a good bet to do that. Yeah, I think he's one of the front runners for that award for sure. But yeah, that's the four takes that we're gonna focus on for NBA. If we want to hop over leagues to the NFL, which, as I mentioned, is kind of high flying and in full effect right now. The first take that we have right now would be, will the Chargers come out of the AFC this year? I know you were super high on the Chargers before this year, so you want to
yeah,
kick it off with them?
yeah, man. I think this takes a lot of fun, and though it's been a small sample, they have looked electric in their 2 wins so far. Justin Herbert has looked the part, and he's looking like he could be an MVP candidate this season if things are to continue. And something that's really surprised me about this offense, at least so far this year, is the passing volume. But it's been working wonders for them. And first of all, Quentin Johnson has looked phenomenal this season. If he's able to keep it up on the outside, and then of course combining that with the ever consistent Keenan Allen and the budding superstar who's Lad McConkey, this is an electric offense. They just need to really unlock the run game, and they might be unstoppable on that end. But the big question, of course, when it comes to this is, would I project this team to be able to beat the Ravens or the Bills, are kind of the main 2 teams, of course, that I'm looking at here. And at the end of the day, I'm really not sure. It's 3 of the best quarterbacks in the league. Very, very tough to say for me, but I think I'd still give the edge to Baltimore and Buffalo with how they've looked so far. Really don't hate this take, though. I think this team's a lot of fun. And yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they are able to make it out the AFC.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that is changed with this team, and was one of the first things you mentioned, is just this passing attack is so much more aggressive and so much more fun to watch this year. It's just been awesome. I love that they're just letting Herbert fully showcase what he has. His many gifts, as I love to rave about with Justin Herbert, and this is just kind of what I've wanted to see with him for so many years now. just to fully unleash Herbert. When Roman and Harbaugh first came in here, it didn't really seem like that's something we were going to get last year. Early on, they really wanted to be that hard-nosed, downhill running the ball team, and they weren't super efficient with it. So they tapped into Herbert a little, but I know he's battling some injuries last year and wasn't necessarily the best, but with another year of added chemistry, like, this has been an awesome unit. Herbert so far has looked like one of the best quarterbacks this year. It's awesome to see that they've taken an emphasis on the strength of what this team is in their quarterback and, put it at the forefront of what they want to do. And in turn, Herbert has been super aggressive and super effective. He's fourth in the league in average depth of target right now at 9.61, which is pretty stark contrast from what we saw last year. And that is kind of coming in hand in hand with what you mentioned in Quentin Johnston being a just down the field threat this year. So far through 2 games, he has looked the part of what you expected him to be in the league, and just a guy who can completely stretch the field and force you to not play up on this team, just giving this team so much big playability, and it's translated a lot. They have some of the highest passing EPA in the league at 27.74, and it's been awesome to see him just kind of dish it out to all these guys. Keenan Allen has looked great coming back. That connection kind of picked up right where it left off. I think Ladd even offers potentially a little more than what he's given you so far. They can certainly tap into that connection even more, because he looked like he was, on pace to be one of these premier guys last year, and he's still been pretty awesome this year, just that he has other options. And Trey Harris, the rookie, has, spread it out a couple of times. So they have options here. And I do want to give a shout out to the offensive line too. They've given him a bunch of time, and just the overall setup of this offense has looked awesome. Just with all the levers they've been able to pull in the passing game and the success of these receivers. Like, sometimes they've been winning with only 2 receivers out there. Like I saw in the Ravens game, like they had a big conversion and they have two receivers out there, and they're just able to keep everyone else in and just give Herbert all the time in the world. Like, the play action has just been super fun to watch. And you thought this team would maybe take a step back in terms of protection, losing Slater at the beginning of the year, but you have not noticed it so far really at all, at least in the pass game. It's been awesome. I guess maybe you have noticed a little bit in the run game, because that is certainly not gotten going to the level they expected it to, definitely with bringing in Hampton. But I think actually getting Najee back will be helpful for this team. He does, at least at the moment, look like the more reliable running back at the time. And I do believe in Hampton to get going later on, but also just as teams are going to have to respect this pass game more and more. You can't be loading up as much, especially with all the downfield stuff that they've done. So that has been awesome, but it's on both sides of the ball. They have been just super efficient. The defense has just looked swarming this year. This team overall is 3rd in total DVOA on both sides of the ball. So not only have they been converting on offense and staying on the field for these long, just grueling drives, they've been getting off the field on defense like at an awesome rate. And going into this year, this was definitely, my big question with this team. Like, they don't have that much talent. They still don't, looking at it on paper, but the way that Jesse Minter has enabled these guys to play, so fast and so aggressive, like, they have been swarming, like I said. And they lose Khalil Mack this past week, which is definitely kind of gonna be a big hit for the pass rush. I mean, you didn't really notice it in the second half against the Raiders, but I do think that is going to come in, because I think the pass rush, in terms of just overall, getting pressure and, you're only going to be able to blitz and dial stuff up so much. You're going to have to win with 4 at some point, and that is certainly going to be an issue moving forward. But I think the secondary has looked awesome. Like, the corners have filled in great. Dante Jackson has been producing for this team, which was a big question of mine at the beginning. Tarheeb still looks like he's a guy. And I love the way they've used Derwin James as well. Like, all around the formation, he has just been used in so many different ways. I mean, they used him as a pick for Khalil Mack to get a sack in the Raiders game, which was awesome. He just comes flying into this tackle to free up Mack and eventually get the sack. That was a rhyme, but yeah, super fun team to watch so far. And you're right that it is tough to go up against like the Ravens or something and come out with a win, but like the way Herbert's playing, like, I certainly think it's possible. I wouldn't take them as my team just because, yeah, they don't necessarily have the run game going yet, and they aren't necessarily as well-rounded as a team like the Ravens right now. I do still expect the Ravens defense to kind of become an elite unit eventually, so I don't know if I can pick them over them, but I think this team could certainly make some noise in the playoffs and appear in an AFC Championship game. I think that's certainly on the table.
Yeah, it is on the table. And to me, like we both kind of just touched on, if they can unlock Omarion Hampton and if he can live up to the draft stock, I will be a lot higher on this team. And then, I mean, I think if that's the case, I really think they could hang with anyone. But until that, I will have my questions about them against a Buffalo or a Baltimore, anything like that. But
yeah, so maybe not this quite yet, but it's super encouraging so far.
Yeah, no, I think it's still a very fair question to ask.
Yeah, and one thing about the Chargers that, it's not about this take, but is super enticing looking forward is they have, I think, the second most cap space in the league next year. So this is a team that is going to be able to load up eventually and get in some high name, high profile guys eventually. They have all their picks right now, but they would be able to take on a big contract. Like, this team is, on the upswing. They are getting better. So I'm super excited about this regime and just how they're going. Shout out to Greg Roman for, changing his ways from such a run-heavy guy so far. He's been completely the opposite. I think that's caught a lot of teams off guard, so
Absolutely.
We'll see if they can sustain it through the year.
Yeah, I honestly trust their top 3 pass catchers. I think they can keep it going.
Yeah. It's
and I think they provide a great dynamic between the 3 of them, so a lot of fun to watch so far.
Like, if Johnston's playing the way that he has, it's like...
And he showed flashes of this last season. He really did. Just a matter of if he can be consistent, and if he
can just catch.
Yeah, that's it. So yeah, for that take, I would most likely, with most of these, as we've said, I would say for this season, most likely not. But I still would not be surprised if some things click and they do make it out the AFC. But if you do want to give your final verdict, I'm
same with you. I think the Ravens too much this year to
especially with how Flowers is looking, like, scary.
Yeah, it would be tough if they had to play these guys, but I think them and the Bills would be an awesome game. I honestly don't really know who I would pick in that one. They certainly look like the best team in their division this year. Like, they've edged out the Chiefs, I think, in terms of like the betting favorites. So could see it, but I'm ultimately gonna go no. But
definitely agree there. If we do want to move on, I know this is a player that you're quite bullish on, so this might be a fun take for you, but MVP award for this NFL season, can Jordan Love walk away with it?
Dude, Jordan Love has just been exactly what the Packers need this year. I don't think he's necessarily playing at an MVP level right now. I don't think he's needed to. I don't think they've really asked him that much because the Packers have just been drubbing every team that they play. Like, right now the Packers have top three defense in the league in terms of, or top two offense in the league in terms of EPA, and top one defense in the league. So it has just been dominant to start so far. So they're looking like they're gonna have the wins too. And yeah, I mean, that has historically kind of been one of the trademarks of this award. Like if you're a QB who's producing on a team that's towards the top of the league and wins, it has contributed to, MVPs in the past. Like when you look at Lamar and Allen, but I mean, those are also guys who just, I think, have had to do a lot more lifting in terms of their overall teams. And although 2 years ago Lamar won it with another historic defense like this, but there will be games going forward where Love will have to do more. And if he keeps the pace that he's up on right now, I think that it's absolutely a possibility. One thing about Jordan Love that I want to highlight is everyone was saying how his weakness is that he's, such a gunslinger and like he can throw picks at any time. Like so far this year, not at all. He has not had a lot of turnover worthy plays. And at the end of last year, he kind of put that case to rest too. He has not thrown a pick since week 11 of last year. So if that's your biggest knock on this guy, saying that he turns the ball over, if he's not doing that, then you're just getting like a completely aggressive guy that can push and flip the field the way Love does, like super dangerous. Like, and he is incredibly aggressive, which in the past has led to these turnovers and stuff. But I mean, you don't even have to necessarily justify it anymore because he's just not turning the ball over, and he's been so smart about it. I mean, he has been super successful. He is at 45% success rate, which is awesome. He leads the league by far in terms of average depth of target, which is kind of one of his trademark things, but no one's within even 3 yards of him. The next high, he's at 13.49 average depth of target, which is just ridiculous. Like, he's completely slinging it. The next highest is Russell Wilson at 10.39, which is, it's just crazy, man. I love his play style, and it certainly embodies the play style of a quarterback who has won MVPs in the past. Like, Allen used to play like this too. He didn't win the award when he was in this mold because he kind of toned it back a little last year. But I think I certainly think this is a possibility for sure.
I think it's a possibility too. I wouldn't give it too much merit, but I definitely wouldn't rule it out either. If I do want to draw a couple comparisons from the Cade Cunningham take that we talked about him winning MVP, kind of bringing the two factors over, the two main ones that we looked at. One, can this team do it in the win column? I have absolutely zero questions there that they will be able to crush it there and come out with one of the best records in the NFL. But two, can he do it statistically? To me, that's a lot more of the question. I think the biggest X factor for me at this point would be if he's able to unlock Matthew Golden. If him and Golden can get a connection going and really bolster Love's yardage and his passing his stats, I mean, he's already, like you said, his average depth of target is by far the most in the league, and Golden is a guy who should be able to capitalize on that if you just evaluate his skill set. If he can get that going, I could see Jordan Love really explode statistically and get to that next level. I know he just lost Jaden Reed, who was one of his top guys, so I definitely expect Golden to increase his role and be able to up his productivity and match that. So something I'm definitely looking for on that front. Do I think he'll walk away with it this year? Again, it's a hot take. I probably don't think so ultimately, but I do think it has some merit. And this is a team, like I said, they're going to crush it in the win column. Just a matter of if Love can keep up statistically.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like, it's gonna be tough with Allen and Lamar. Like, we've like we kind of mentioned in the NBA with Shea and Jokic, it's tough to win an MVP when you're not necessarily. I wouldn't say Love's really on that caliber yet, and again, he's not being asked to do nearly as much as those guys. He's only at about 240 yards per game. Has gotten in the end zone a good bit. He has been super efficient. But overall, the Packers are a team that is going to want to run the ball a lot more, and they haven't necessarily been as efficient as successful on the ground, but I do think they'll continue to tap into that run game a lot, so that might put a damper on Love's stats, but I don't know. I've just been so impressed with Love so far. You're right. He doesn't necessarily just have the attempts too. I mean, he's only dropped back 53 times, for 35 complete. Like both games, he's been under 20 completions. So, yeah, you're right. I think the volume just isn't necessarily gonna be there for him, but
I think
it's hard to write it off with.
Sorry.
No, you're good.
Just one thing that came to mind for me, at least, maybe a good way to think about it is the way that this team is structured. Love maybe asked to be more of a game manager than a hero, which could result in superior stats. So that could just be what offsets his chances statistically, at least.
But he doesn't play like a game manager, He just he chucks that thing. Like he's so aggressive. A game manager would fit well in this offense, and they'd probably be great. But
exactly,
if Love is still playing this aggressive and pushing it, they're gonna be in more competitive games eventually. They're not gonna beat every team as bad as they have recently. And if you're gonna give him the opportunity, yeah, he might start to turn it over and be less perfect than he's been so far, but. I think he's a very compelling candidate because it does just look like the Packers are going to win so many games this year. So
exactly,
he's up there in the top 3 for me. I'm debating if I want to back this take, but overall, I think the Packers defense just being as impressive as it is, and we saw last year in a case where there are such great seasons, like Lamar and Allen both had historic seasons last year. I think they sided with Allen because he did have to do a little bit more heavy lifting than Lamar did. So yeah, I don't know if it's gonna happen, but he'll be in the running to the end. It's a fun one for sure.
It's a fun one.
Definitely.
Yeah, I agree with you there though. We do have one more NFL take to touch on here, and I'll let you lead this one off. Travis Hunter, through 2 games so far, has not looked the sharpest. Are we ready to label him as a bust?
I mean, labeling him as a bust already would be hilarious.
I think I worded that a little bit wrong. Do you think Travis Hunter will be a bust?
But, I mean, it's definitely been thrown out a bunch. I mean, people are saying it. And the truth is, he has not popped really at all so far in the start, and it's hard to label him a bust, but you gotta think, the amount of capital that this guy was tied to, they traded pretty much 3 first-round picks to get this guy, and he has not delivered that in the slightest so far, and he's looked pretty bad as a receiver. He is last in route run win rate among rookies, and is only at 1.02 yards per route run, which is very concerning. Specifically from the offensive side. I can't really hop on this now, but I definitely was a little concerned when the Jaguars traded up so much to get a guy in Travis Hunter, because you're essentially betting on the fact that he is going to be an elite player on both sides of the ball. That's the capital that you gave up. You're giving up 3 first round picks, that's 3 potential, difference making players. So you're hoping that this guy is pretty much 2 difference making players, 2 stars on both sides of the ball, and he certainly has not been that at all on the offensive side of the ball. He has a 52.1% offensive grade and a 32.4 passer rating when targeted. And I mean, it shows up. He looks completely unrefined as a receiver. Like, and that was kind of expected because he clearly hasn't put in as much time to developing that side of the ball as obviously guys who were able to focus their whole careers on that. But he's kind of just been getting by early as, being a great athlete. And he's been really limited to the short range in the NFL, which, wasn't the case in college. He was a guy who you could throw deep ball to because he is, such a talented catcher of the football. He has great hands, and I thought that was one of his biggest strengths coming out. But in the NFL, he's just not been able to create those leverage scenarios where you can get it to him down the field, and they've had to draw up a lot of easy stuff for him, and you can only be so effective when you're doing that. So that side of the ball has been super disappointing.
Yeah, and if I'm not mistaken, he was relinquished to strictly cornerback duties in the second half of last game, if I remember correctly. So that might indicate maybe a little bit even of loss of faith on Travis Hunter on the offensive end. So we'll certainly see if he can flip that around in the coming weeks. And another thing that may be working against him is the extreme lack of consistency from his quarterback. So we'll see if they can get on the same page there as well. Of course, they've only played 2 games together so far, but so far for the Jaguars receiving core, it has looked very dim. Those top 2 guys with him and Thomas came in with sky-high expectations, and they have not lived up to it yet. So we'll see, like I said, if they can flip that script, but it is a dull start to the career for Travis Hunter, someone who just won a Heisman Award.
Yeah, I mean, also, like, he has just not gotten the snaps total to justify the draft position. You draft him to be this two-way guy who you're getting impact on both sides. And the first game, he barely played at all on the defensive side. I think he had like 16 snaps or something. And yeah, you're right. He was relinquished to the defensive role, which he was a lot better in. He's only given up 16 yards total so far. He only gave up one catch to Jamar Chase, which was impressive, but still, on the season, he's only playing 37% of the defensive snaps. Like, that is just, like, the math doesn't add up, It's like the math's not math in here in terms of what you're giving up for this guy. He hasn't been elite on either side of the ball. He's only caught 9 passes with 55 receiving yards and, 3 tackles and 1 pass defense on defense. It's just, you're not playing that much snaps on that side of the ball. So, I mean, you can look at the, lack of production and try to make a case out of it, but he has not been a major impact player so far, and you drafted him to be. He needs to start popping and making, game-changing plays, or else it's going to look like you overpaid for this guy.
Yeah, that's absolutely it. Of course, this is a hot take, and he's only 2 games into his young career, so you could view this as a major overreaction, but strictly just, of course, speculation, and this is what makes it a hot take. But yeah, for now, I am just going to say my final verdict is no on this one, just because I am a believer in his talent ultimately, and I think he'll be able to right the ship, at least on one side of the ball. We'll see if that's the case moving forward, but how about you?
I'll say this. He's not going to be a bust. He'll be a good, productive player, but I don't think he's going to justify the draft haul that he, demanded. I mean, not that it's his fault. I mean, I still think he'll be a good player, and I do think he definitely has a lot of promise on the defensive side of the ball. I thought he was, a better corner coming in than a receiver, and obviously he does need to refine that. But, I mean, they gave up the 5th overall pick, next year's first-round pick, a second-round pick, and a 4th-round pick to get this guy. Like, those are 4... valuable assets. So giving that up for one player, it was supposed to be like you're getting a star on both sides of the ball, like a top 5 pick and on both sides of the ball. And unfortunately, it just hasn't looked like that. So not a bust. That'd be a little crazy to say right now, but it's looking like an uphill battle to, justify that draft possession. But
Yeah.
that'll do it for the takes. Unless
Yeah.
did you have something else to say on Travis?
No, man. Yeah, you definitely nailed it there. But yeah, those were a lot of fun to run through. Of course, if you guys like this kind of content, always feel free to leave a comment, tell us what you like. Leave even in the comments any hot takes that you have for this NFL season, for this upcoming NBA season, anything you may want to see us react to as well. But before we get out of here today, man, another big day of games tomorrow. Are there any that you have circled personally?
Well, I'm actually going to be at the Patriots Steelers game, which is super exciting. I think
Awesome.
that'll be a big opportunity for the Patriots to gain some momentum for sure. If they win this game, I think it'll definitely get some heads turning, and it would be huge for, Drake May's trajectory too. I mean, two big wins in a row. He's coming off really his most complete game, like we talked about last episode. And if you can keep that rolling and play another clean game, I would be super excited. I mean, the Steelers defense has been pretty uninspiring so far to start the year, which is a conversation in its own right because it is the highest paid defense in the league right now. But yeah, they don't look great. But I think the game that everyone's looking at tomorrow is Rams Eagles.
Big
That's an awesome game. I think it's really interesting test for Philly, who has just looked kind of I mean, not kind of, super lackluster in the passing game category. So you imagine that the Rams are going to be able to put some points up, and, the Eagles are going to have to catch up and get some stuff going on that side of the ball. So it'd be interesting to see how they react. The Rams defense has been, a good story so far. They haven't played necessarily the most competitive teams. So it'll be cool to see that, divisional round rematch from last year. The Rams, played the Eagles the toughest of anyone in the playoffs last year. So I think it's a cool matchup.
That's a really cool matchup, and just a couple other games I'm looking forward to tomorrow. Nice little AFC West matchup between the Chargers, the aforementioned team that we talked about, and the Broncos. That could be a fun game tomorrow. That game is in Los Angeles, so I'm looking forward to that one. And then the Monday night brawl between the Ravens and Lions. That one's going to be a lot of fun. Vegas projects this one to be the highest scoring game on the week. And, I mean, you could see why with the two teams involved there. But those are the other two games that I'm really looking forward to tomorrow. But, yeah, great slate of games coming up.
Another game that I think could be the highest scoring that I'm going to be pretty interested in is Cowboys-Bears.
For sure.
Certainly not necessarily the hard hitters as like a Ravens Lions or a Rams Eagles. I don't think these teams project to be nearly as good as those teams, but I think it should be an offensive showcase and two teams that really need a win. So should be fun to see. Big one for the Bears, especially.
Big one, yeah.
Yeah. So, man. Yeah, that about wraps it up. Thank you guys for listening. If you made it this far in the video, what are you doing? Please comment, and subscribe. Not what are you doing, but what are you doing without liking the video? If you watched this far, it only makes sense after an hour with us, to support the channel a little bit, and that's, the best way to do so. So thank you guys for listening. More content coming next week. We're kind of getting into this Monday, Saturday schedule, so
check us out on TikTok too.
Yep. We'll have some clips from this episode. We have some NBA clips up there, so super fun stuff today, and super excited to continue breaking down the season and looking forward to NBA for sure.
Getting into peak sports, man. 1 month. Let's go.
It's a great time of year. All right. Thank you guys, and take care.